John Burns, Penny Houston, and Buddy Harden, both members of this subcommittee and member of the Ag Committee. So we're here to hear you and discuss this issue this morning, and we welcome you here, and certainly we're always glad you come to the Capitol. And y'all all know how emails work. I can just test you. Or most of you anyway. So.
Great. Thanks, Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee. I really appreciate the opportunity to discuss House Bill 842 with you this morning. House Bill 842 is a very simple bill. I know we hear that an awful lot. Right now, we're not in the best economic situation. I think what's on our desks this morning with that supplemental budget is a testament to that fact. We've got double-digit unemployment with no real end in sight of turning that around. People did not starve to death in the Great Depression. They knew how to provide food for their own families with gardens and small animals, and that's what this bill addresses. The bill is very simple. For personal consumption of yourself and your members of your own family, no local governing entity can prohibit you from feeding yourself. They're with either raising food in a garden or small animals, chickens, rabbits, or goats. And there you get milk from the goat, meat from the rabbit, eggs from the chicken, vegetables from the garden, and a family can live very well that way. There's also a provision in here for a community garden, very small, no more than 2.75 acres of total lot size. I mean, we're not going for, well, nobody wants a commercial farm in their backyard or in their community. For those who are concerned, this bill on the second page, subsection C, this does not invalidate a private covenant. If a person wants to voluntarily not provide for their own food, more power to them. This does not impair that voluntarily saying I'm not going to do this ability, nor does it invalidate any nuisance statute. So if you've got odor, if you've got noise, your existing nuisance statute takes care of that. This is very limited in scope. There's no commercial operation whatsoever. Can't even sell it to a local market. Any excess you've got, it's only for your own consumption. If you want to go in the business of selling what you have, you need to be a farmer. This is just for families to be able to feed themselves. And I've got no law should prohibit a family from feeding themselves. I could voluntarily say I'm not going to provide for my own food, but government, civil government, should not tell me that I can't.
Here, here. And I'm all for rights too, but I also have a history in local government. Particularly on the animal side. Now, I have no problem with crop. I think folks ought to be able to do what they want to with their land. But I do know that in many communities where these laws exist, they are there because, hey, you may have a shift worker next door, but his neighbor wants to raise a goat or a chicken or a rooster that crows in the morning and night. I wonder if we could consider toning this down a little bit, leaving our local people and local governments that they elect the right to maybe somehow make this a little more agreeable to everyone concerned.
Well, I appreciate that concern, which is why I've got the provision in here, in that subsection C, dealing with nuisance. So if a rooster might be making some noise in the morning while that shift worker's trying to sleep, just like the dog barking would be a nuisance, there's still that provision.
All right.
But we're just saying that just because you are this type of animal does not mean that you're prohibited.
If we could make that clear in the law, then that would satisfy my concern.
Well, I think there might be a way to make clear. I think it is pretty clear in lines 29 and 30 about the cause of actions for nuisance shall remain subject to provisions of 41(1)(7), where those local governments can bring a nuisance charge.
Well, I just have a feeling that we're gonna pass something and local officials are gonna really have a burden dealing with this. I don't know how familiar you are with raising goats. I mean, have you ever been around goats a lot?
Not a lot, no ma'am.
Well, I have, and goats, I don't know how, goats just have an odor. And I certainly would hate to have a nice house and bought a house in a subdivision and wanted to live there, and my neighbors had goats and the smell was so bad I couldn't stand it.
Well, then that would be the nuisance that then the local government could come in.
Don't I have a right when don't I have some rights though? Should I have to go to if I want to live in a neighborhood without goats, don't I have a right to live in a neighborhood without goats?
Just as well, you've got a right to live, to have quiet enjoyment of your property, for sure, and if your next door neighbor were to have a Great Dane that would relieve itself along your property line, and the owner not clean that odor would be
If I moved
pretty
in
strong
a
too.
subdivision with a covenant that said you couldn't have goats.
Then this bill would not apply. This bill would not apply because the covenant, this does not supersede the neighborhood covenant.
Would you be willing to drop the word goat?
No. What about no?
I didn't ask y'all, I asked Jim.
A lot more with this bill. My name is Kelly Pridgeon. I'm Assistant General Counsel of the Association of County Commissioners of Georgia. And we stand opposed to this bill. One of the purposes of comprehensive planning, future land use maps, and zoning is to segregate different uses of property so that each use is put in its best area, and it's also put in an area where it doesn't negatively impact the people in another use. This bill would tie the hands of local government to protect the rest of the property owners in that residential district. Typically, our ordinance restricts only dogs and cats to the residential area, usually limits the division I live in. So there wouldn't be the protection for smell, noise, property value decrease by having these uses next door.
It sort of seared my psyche, but reminds me of when my grandmother was growing up. My grandmother told me about how she used to go to the butcher, and she would select a chicken, and the chicken would be grabbed, have its neck chopped off, and would run around the yard with blood squirting out of its severed head until it finally stopped moving, and then she would have she talked about how that was the most horrible event in her young childhood, and that she loved the Winn-Dixie down the street where she could actually buy a chicken that was already prepared for her.
What makes America great?
What makes America great. But there are many cities. I live in the city of Decatur that allows chickens. They don't allow roosters. We don't allow goats. Things such as the potential of having goat slaughterings in city backyards could potentially scar young children's psyche, like it did my poor Grammy.
Some changes in this bill as it goes along. We don't have time this morning. I'm going to move that we move it to full committee so that we can see if we can work out those problems and yet not interfere with our local government's rights, because quite frankly, the people elected them and they have a right to. So I want to make sure.